For once, I want to thank the Cancrolla. I want to thank Deputies Connolly and Pringle for bringing this private member's motion before the House today. While it is a motion that I cannot fully... Oh, sorry, I want to move our counter motion as well, counter amendment as well.
Moving your Amendment 1 has been moved by the Minister.
Well, it is a motion that I cannot fully support, and that's why we're moving our own motion as a government as well. We do think it's an opportune time to have a debate on this issue, and I very much welcome the opportunity to listen to your views on the subject and the views of any other deputies in this House as well. In particular, I am anxious to hear your concerns regarding issues around traditional seaweed harvesting, which is one of the central messages in the motion which we will debate today. Both your own motion and our counter-motion as well recognises the importance of the traditional harvester and their rights as well. At the outset of this debate, I would like to reiterate, as I have on a number of occasions in this House, our concern, the concern of my department and the concern of our government regarding issues relating to traditional seaweed harvesters. Indeed, it was for this specific reason that my department placed on hold the applications we received from various companies who sought to harvest seaweed until my department has an opportunity to thoroughly research and clarify all of the legal issues involved. Indeed, the 2015 report by the Joint Committee on Environment, Culture and Agriculture highlights clarity around this issue as being key to enhancing the potential of the sector. And again, we recognise that report that wants to develop a kind of business case for the sector, and we would totally not agree with that and would be something we would be very much supportive of. At the outset, it is important to note that the Government has set out its policy by which Ireland's marine potential can be realised in our integrated marine plan. Harnessing our ocean wealth has three high-level goals of equal importance. One is a thriving maritime economy, two, healthy ecosystems, and three, engagement with the sea. Within this plan, to support the goals are 8 enablers, covering such areas as governance, clean, green, marine, research, knowledge, technology and innovation. And also within the 8 enablers areas are further 39 actions for issues that have to be actioned on as well. In the area of seaweed, it is important that I set out clearly my responsibilities as a Minister of State to the department I am at. Under the Foreshore Act 1933, I have responsibility for regulating activities and development within the foreshore area. The foreshore area stretches from the high water mark out to a distance of 12 nautical miles, a total area of approximately 39,000 square kilometres. This area is considered state property under the State Property Acts. The Foreshore Act controls development within this area, and we are approached by individuals, companies and organisations pursuant to this legislation seeking consent for developments such as marinas, slipways, coastal protection measures and port development. Consent is also sought for activities such as one-day events such as horse racing, sand or gravel removal, but also the harvesting of seaweed. I do not have responsibility for the regulation or development of any industry that utilises the foreshore space, although I can insert specific clauses in foreshore leases. It should also be noted that I do not have, contrary to some who argue otherwise, the means under legislation to sell either any area of the foreshore or to sell seaweed rights. And I want to be very, very clear on that. So this comparison with fisheries or gas, there's no rights or responsibilities on me as Minister to be able to sell that. I can't do it. I just want to be very, very clear on that so everyone knows what we're doing here. Consent to applications under the Foreshore Act is given by way of a lease to confer exclusive use, generally for long-term, semi-permanent or permanent development, or a licence for non-exclusive use, generally shorter-term, non-permanent activities such as one-day events, telecommunications cables or seaweed harvesting. During the period of the lease, the area remains property of the state, with the leasee paying rent to the state. The role of my department in relation to the harvesting of wild seaweed is to regulate activity in accordance with the Foreshore Act. In carrying out this task, there is a need to ensure that the resource is suitably managed with the twin aims of protecting the marine environment and allowing for a sustainable level of harvesting. And that word sustainable is key for all of us here, and that's what we're about, and that's what you're about, and that's why there's actually a lot of common ground with our motions here tonight as well. While it is not directly relevant to the issues of traditional seaweed harvesting, I am aware that a delegation from West Cork is making its views known today outside the House, and again I understand someone here today inside the House as well. My officials have met with the group. I wasn't able on the day that we met on that day, but I do look forward to meeting members of that group in due course, and we've been trying to arrange that for myself and my officials to meet them again to engage, and we're happy to do so at a time that suits everybody as well. It is disappointing, when I'm on that note, that an eco-wide programme took a very one-sided view of the issue of the licence in Bantry Bay, which was granted by the then Minister John Gormley in 2011. Accordingly, I welcome the recent ruling by the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland in relation to the complaint it received regarding this programme, and acknowledged, and I quote, that the programme did not include a range of perspective on the topic sufficient to meet the requirements of fairness, objectivity and impartiality, in a context where it was evident that there were other views, including the views of the complainant. While I appreciate that this group and many other groups have a number of concerns regarding the licence, it is disappointing that the programme did not mention the baseline study and the monitoring programme, which were specifically included by my department in the terms of the licence to underpin the sustainability of the resource, and also to recognise the area in question here, where there was a licence grant for about 750 hectares out of about 20,000. So we are trying to manage this sustainably. It is kind of a case we'll monitor and test case as well, but we are doing this as best we possibly can in a very, very careful way, with an extremely positive eye to sustainability of the seaweed sector as well. But that's not recognised in the programme, and all I'm asking with our counter motion is that you have to understand that I have to balance all the various discussions here and all the various rights, and the motion is just too focused in one way, and that's what we're trying to do as a Minister as well. Seaweed represents a valuable natural resource that, if sustainably harvested, can maintain and stimulate further economic development in coastal and rural areas. Again, we all agree with that, and we all recognise that as well. While this has always been the historical position of seaweed in Ireland, to contribute positively to economic growth, we have moved from a position of using seaweed mainly for food, as fertiliser and as an animal foodstuff, to a position where we have enhanced applications and uses for seaweed. Seaweed is now the raw material in cutting-edge biopharma products such as animal probiotics, anticoagulants and blood products. These are Irish companies. There are Irish companies using seaweed or seaweed-derived products in biopharma and other areas such as body care, cosmetic products and artisan foods. And it's a lot more than just the 1% that's been mentioned here today as well, with massive potential there as well. To maximise the economic potential of this valuable resource, these are the sectors that we must look to support if we wish to encourage further high-value growth, to provide jobs at all the various levels, but certainly even at high-quality jobs at both graduate and PhD level in the area of research and development, technology and advanced production processes and sales and marketing. Then investment is needed, and investment is what we have to have. Companies based in Ireland, such as Ilan Glass Orincha, OGT, BioAtlantis and Brandon Bioscience, have made significant investment in these areas and are already producing high-value products that compete in global markets. And as recent as last week, I met some people who are now in very high-end quality jobs, who are in the research sector, from the local communities, both in Galway and Mayo, involved in this sector as well, and rightly so. And it's more that we want to see. I want to confirm that my department is currently in receipt of 17 applications for licences under the Foreshore Act to harvest wild seaweed, on hand of which 13 are from the companies who wish to harvest and process seaweed. The applicants produce products that range from artisan food products to animal health products to high-grade fertiliser. While assessing these applications, we discovered that certain rights to harvest seaweed exist in coastal communities, particularly along the western seaboard, in the same geographical area that the companies have applied for. To learn more about the extent and nature of existing rights to harvest seaweed, my department engaged with the Property Registration Authority of Ireland to determine the number of appurtenant rights specified in the land register portfolios. On foot of this request, the PRAI provided my department with aggregate data detailing the extent of the rights in 7 of the western seaboard counties: Cork, Kerry, Limerick, Clare, Galway, Mayo and Donegal. The data showed that there are approximately 6,500 rights relating to seaweed spread across those 7 counties. However, while there is not a definitive number of those engaged in traditional harvesting of seaweed, estimates are that somewhere between 250 to 400 of these rights are currently being exercised. My department has also undertaken work to establish the implications of the interaction between these existing seaweed harvesting rights and the applications for licences by companies, and my officials have met with the Attorney General's office on a number of occasions to examine these issues over the last couple of years. Once this work is complete, it is my aim to bring clarity to the regulatory regime applying to wild seaweed harvesting, seeking to balance the existing rights of traditional harvesters and commercial potential, while also ensuring sustainability of the resource and compliance with the state's obligations under domestic and EU environmental law. I want to be very, very clear, Deputy Pringle, it is to get that balance right and to recognise the importance of the traditional harvester. I want to be absolutely very clear on that. There was no decisions made on this, and all applications are on hold until we can work on this. And I'm very, very happy to work with any TDs here to discuss this further away from today as well and work on this. And I'm happy to do that because I will be meeting with different groups over the weeks ahead. And that's an open invitation because we want to get this right in our department. I want to give that guarantee. In relation to the motion tonight, the Government cannot support a motion that looks to focus on the issue of seaweed or the development of the seaweed industry while only concentrating on a singular viewpoint, that of the traditional seaweed harvester. Any regulatory regime must take into account the interests of a multiplicity of stakeholders, and that's what we're trying to do here. The private member's motion by Deputies Connolly and Pringle does not reflect a symbiotic relationship between traditional harvesters and companies. Quite simply, from what I can see, from my view, from our department's view, both entities need each other. I think you kind of said the same yourself, Deputy Pringle. They need each other. One supplies the other, and one helps pay the bills as well. The main source of raw material for companies comes from the seaweed harvested by traditional harvesters, while the main income derived by traditional harvesters from selling seaweed comes from the companies. They are linked together, and it's how we can bring that relationship forward and develop it together, that everyone gains, but more important, that the communities gain, and that we can create jobs in this area and develop those sectors along many towns and villages that you all represent. In the context of listening to all views, that I've agreed to meet with the different stakeholders to hear their views. I recently met with a processor of seaweed and had hoped at this point to have met with the Costa Carta Clady Connemara, a group of traditional harvesters from the Gaeltacht area in Connemara, and also the NAPG group, who represent a number of the larger producers. However, given the recent weather conditions, we didn't get a chance to meet over the last couple of weeks. I'd hoped to meet before today, but we certainly will do that, along with meeting the group in Bantry Bay as well, because again, we want to get everyone's views on this and a bit of balance. There's a little bit more time, Chair, if I could for a second. There's also a view that the need to prevent the over-exploitation of this valuable resource, while also providing for an environment that will support the growth of valuable jobs in local areas, is the principle that must underpin the regulation of wild seaweed harvesting. All leases and licences granted by my department under the Forestry Act include clauses specific to sustainability of the resource, environmental protection and compliance appropriate to the activity and the area in which it is granted. I believe that the counter-motion that I am proposing on behalf of the Government today will allow for the interests of all stakeholders to be taken into account. It acknowledges the importance of wild seaweed harvesting in rural communities, particularly along the western seaboard. It recognises seaweed harvesting as one of the sources of income for some families in rural communities. It also, however, recognises that to continue to grow the seaweed industry in Ireland, we must look to the production of high-value products that will provide graduate and PhD level opportunities in these communities. It focuses not only on traditional harvesters, but also on these companies that have the ability to turn a naturally occurring marine resource into cutting-edge products which can be supplied to global markets and, again, can be done by working together as well. The counter-motion also highlights the fact that all harvesters of seaweed, whether they be a traditional harvester or a company, equally share the responsibility for ensuring the sustainability of this valuable natural resource. It notes and reaffirms the ongoing work of my department to progress the Maritime Area and Foreshore Amendment Bill, which will bring much-needed reform to the regulation of all development activity regulated under the Forestry Act 1933. Thus, in conclusion, I want to take the opportunity to once again assure everyone that no decisions have yet been reached on the commercial seaweed harvesting applications which have been received by my department. These 17 applications are essentially on hold while my officials continue to work on this complex legal issue, and again, I'm happy to engage with TDs of this House and both Houses of Senators as well around this process over the weeks ahead if you want. I wish to reaffirm my commitment and the commitment of our Government to the work necessary to bring clarity to the regulatory regime in relation to wild seaweed harvesting, and while this work is now in its final stages, I hope to be in a position to make announcements in the next 2 months. Finally, while I cannot support all aspects of the motion stated by Deputies Connolly and Pringle, I am very conscious of the traditional role played by seaweed harvesters up and down the west coast of Ireland over many, many generations. I am also very aware, as is my department, aware of the economic value and the positive economic contribution which their efforts have made to their communities and to their families. I also respect the heritage of seaweed harvesting and the way in which they have protected and safeguarded the resource through sustainable harvesting practices. I am deeply conscious of all these aspects and the integral part that seaweed harvesting has played in people's lives along the western seaboard. As I have outlined earlier, I look forward to hearing about these issues at first hand when I meet with representatives of traditional harvesters shortly over the weeks ahead before any decisions are made, and I want to confirm that to the House as well. Thanks, Chair, for a little bit of lenience and time.
No bother. Thank you, Minister.